I'm really happy my channel is faceless right now, otherwise you would all be able to see my face is covered in clown makeup. I really thought we were gonna see the rumored remake of Fire Emblem 4 in this Nintendo Direct, but I guess it wasn't meant to be for now. That said, I am still 100% convinced a remake of Genealogy of the Holy War is coming. It really just makes too much sense. Before I present to you the multitude of reasons, I just want to make clear this video will not contain any major spoilers for the game, only some very minor mechanic stuff. Why would I ruin a game for you I'm sure is still coming soon? I'm not that much of a clown. Anyway, on to reason number 1, Fire Emblem Engage. It's probably the most obvious of all, besides, FE4 just being next in line after Gaiden. Marth is definitely the most important emblem in Engage, no doubt about it, but Sigurd is not far behind. And that is a very curious decision, considering his game has never been localized and, legally, only players of Heroes should be somewhat familiar with him. And yet, he is Lumira's personal advisor and plays a much bigger role in the story than emblems every Fire Emblem fan should be familiar with, like Ike, Lucina or Byleth. So, that leaves you to wonder why this decision was made. It's not notoriety, and it's not as an homage to the series' origins either, since then Celica should have been given the role. Character archetype is a possibility, as Sigurd does feel a little more sophisticated and mature than most other emblems. From a typecasting standpoint, Sigurd would probably make the most sense as an advisor to Lumira. But the real interesting possibility, of course, is an attempt to make Western players familiar with Sigurd before the remake. After all, we know that FE4 most likely began development before Engage. This is because of the internal development codes. Here, every game is called Iron and then the corresponding number. So, Three Houses is Iron 17, Fates is Iron 16, and yet Engage is Iron 19. And no, Three Hopes doesn't follow this naming trend since it wasn't developed by Intelligent Systems. So not only is there a game unaccounted for, it also started development before Engage. It puts a lot more weight behind the idea of Engage serving as a bit of an advertisement for a future FE4 remake. On to reason number 2, also known as the source of it all, the leaks. It's June 2022, when Reddit user MyEsmaDelta posts some information about what they call a new Fire Emblem game, not a remake. It is meant to be a 30th anniversary celebration game, and will feature old characters through a mechanic known as emblems. They also include a few screenshots, which show who we now know to be Alir, Mauvier, Vander, and almost the entire cast really, all set in the Somniel. Meaning, this is very much real. However, while this Reddit user may have brought this information overseas, they are not the source. Earlier that same day, these pictures surfaced on a Chinese forum, the poster of which includes one tidbit this Reddit user did not. A Fire Emblem 4 remake is also coming. As we just established, if it's real, the remake was already in development at this point, so this isn't impossible, but it does leave a lot of uncertainty, especially for us in the West. I don't speak Chinese, so I can't hunt down the exact truth, but considering these Engage screenshots are the real thing, one might assume the remake comments are as well. But the fact of the matter is, we have no proof. It's the word of a leaker, who may have just tossed it in to mess with everyone. There simply is no way to know for certain, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And maybe it's a healthy dose of hopium, but I believe this leaker was telling the truth, at least at the time. This has already been some pretty concrete evidence, but there are several more reasons that explain why it would just make a lot of sense. Like reason number 3, the popularity of Genealogy of the Holy War. Not in the West, obviously, we never got this game, but in Japan, FE4 is nowadays considered one of the most popular games. It was originally one of the best-selling titles in Japan until the GBA games started beating it. Polls in recent years also have FE4 consistently ranking very high in popularity, right next to more recent titles like Three Houses. This is a pretty stark contrast to Gaiden, and yet, that game's lack of sales and popularity didn't stop it from getting a remake. By that logic, if Gaiden could get remade and do reasonably well all things considered, a Fire Emblem 4 remake has the chance to be a serious big success for Intelligent Systems. Not just in the West, where it is effectively a new game, but also in Japan, where they have been eagerly awaiting a return to Jugdrawl. And yet, despite the popularity of the game in Japan, it has been repeatedly snubbed in Fire Emblem Heroes. Welcome to reason number 4, Heroes is saving FE4 for later. As you probably know, Fire Emblem Heroes to this very day regularly release new units to the game. These can be characters that hadn't appeared in the game yet, but way more often we see seasonal banners featuring alts for pre-existing characters. These banners commonly take characters from all over the series and throw them together into one group, usually for some event. Think New Year's, Valentine, Winter, and the infamous Summer banner. But despite its popularity in Japan, jug draw characters are only very rarely featured in this. We did get a jug draw banner relatively recently, and the characters have sporadically appeared in non-seasonal banners, like a Masquerade and Tea Party banner. But these core seasonals, which are big events in Heroes mind you, have not featured a single jug draw character in the 7 years the game has existed. It and Thracia are the only games in Fire Emblem history this applies to. All the other games, even other Japan exclusives like Binding Blade, have had this honor. Which begs the question, why? It could be because we in the West are less familiar with these characters, meaning IS has no confidence Wales will for them? But is that really true? Is Sigurd really so much more unknown than Lilina? I don't think so. So could it then be that Heroes is holding them back, knowing that dropping them now makes no sense when there'll be a much higher demand this time next year? That feels a lot more believable to me. Heroes is made completely in-house at Intelligence Systems, meaning they will 100% be aware of what the internal plans are, including this possible remake that has been worked on for years now. You know, that makes me wonder. If the FE4 remake apparently started development before Engage, how do we know it hasn't been scrapped, with the staff moving on to Engage afterwards? Well, we can't know for certain, of course, but when looking at the credits of Free Houses and Engage, something very interesting pops up. Very few people worked on both games. Engage was almost entirely made by the Fates team, while the Free Houses crew was absent entirely. What were they up to? While Koei Tecmo did do a lot of legwork for Free Houses, the answer isn't Free Hopes either. That was made by the Warriors team, who also made the original Fire Emblem Warriors. It leaves a lot of staff unaccounted for, who have presumably been working on a yet-to-surface project. And that being an FE4 remake makes a ton of sense. Because of reason 5. Genealogy of the Holy War is a surprisingly similar game to Free Houses. Let's be very clear here. Free Houses is by far the most popular game in the Fire Emblem series. It's not even close. Awakening may have saved the series and Fates then outsold it, but Free Houses has lifted this series up a tier or two on the Nintendo popularity ladder. It has sold a whopping 4 million copies worldwide. That's only a little less as Fates and Engage combined. Point being, the game reached a larger audience than the series ever did before, and you can bet your ass Intelligent Systems will want to reach them again. And aside from an original title, Genealogy of the Holy War has the best chance to do so. Almost 20 years before Fates introduced My Castle and kickstarted the modern staple of a hub area, Genealogy of the Holy War featured a home base that functions surprisingly similar within the limitations of the SNES, of course. Without going into spoilers, FE4 also has a story with a similar tone to Free Houses, being a serious, well-written tale about war, politics, life and death. It's no Engage or Fates, basically. The games even share a time skip, which is vital to the way both games work. FE4 also has a primitive form of character customization, seeing as you can hand out special skills. Put this all together and you start to see a pattern where there is a pretty solid chance that fans of Free Houses might also find themselves interested in Genealogy of the Holy War, which is exactly what Intelligent Systems want. So what better move than to put the team that made Free Houses a success on remaking FE4. And then I haven't even mentioned what might be possibly the game's biggest boon for the modern Fire Emblem audience. Reason number 5, the support system and child units. FE4 was the first game in the series to feature a support system similar to our modern one. And just like Awakening and Fates infamously did, it allows you to pair up your Gen 1 units to create your own Gen 2 units. This makes it a perfect match for the dating sim elements that have become another modern Fire Emblem staple, and, hate it or love it, are a huge part of the reason the series is even alive today. In fact, I think there's a pretty big argument to be made that the support system and child units are what made Awakening the series-saving title it ended up being. And you only just need one peek at how much Free Houses fanfic is out there to know it definitely played a role there too. For the remake of Gaiden, an entire support system had to be created from scratch, but for FE4, the groundwork is already all laid out for the developers to go to town and make it so the support system of this remake barely feels like it came from 1996. Now, put all these factors together and I really can't do anything but conclude an FE4 remake is coming. Not only is there substantial evidence it's close, it also just makes way too much sense. It's not often you can say a remake of a nearly 30-year-old game feels like a guaranteed financial success, but it really does feel like that for Genealogy of the Holy War. First year Switch 2 title, I'm calling it now. But hey, that's just my take. Let me know what you think is going on with this remake in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel to stay updated on all my future Fire Emblem content. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.